Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. A great episode today. We're breaking down everything we saw from the weekend at Pebble Beach. We've also got a little bit of live talk with Anthony Kim, and we're breaking down a bunch of equipment as well that was successful this week. So jam-packed episode, plus a couple interviews, Cobra OPTM and Vokey SM11 are the topics of discussion today. So that and a whole lot more on this episode of Second Swing Thoughts. Hey golfers, and welcome back to the studio for Second Swing Thoughts. We're live. Once again, if you're joining us here, we're going to do this every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Harrison Arnold's with me, Master Club Fitter, and it was a great weekend of golf. It was, Pebble Beach delivers almost every year as far as the PGA Tour is concerned. We also had a great storyline develop on the Live Golf League as well. What did you think, Harrison, before we dive in here? Just give me your first overall high-level takeaways of the weekend.
Yeah, I think, one, Pebble Beach always has the best winners every single year. I mean, if you look back the last 4 or 5 years, you never get a bad name who wins around Pebble Beach. You've got to be a proper player to win around Pebble. And then, like we've talked about some live golf, Anthony Kim out of nowhere. That is one of the coolest stories. I doubt that'll be beaten for the rest of the year. That's really cool.
Yeah, so let's get right into it here. Then we'll transition into the turn that we call kind of our recap of the weekend in golf. We'll start with the Pebble Beach and the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I think it's the longest running kind of sponsor, that name, right? AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. This iconic venue. Weather comes into play in a big way this past weekend. Collin Morikawa, who I think historically has not been super good at adapting to kind of dicey conditions, but did a really good job this weekend, and he gets the win. Kind of ends a drought for him as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was really cool to kind of watch how the golfers kind of navigating their way around day by day. Every single day was a completely different test. I think they were probably expecting a little bit more weather to come in yesterday than it did. I mean, it started to blow towards the end. If you saw Jacob Bridgman couldn't give his ball on the green on the last, right. Morikawa was kind of being iced out in the fairway.
Right.
But I think, overall, I mean, that tournament itself, they run a great event. John, the tournament director, does a fantastic job. They do a lot of good charity work as well. And I mean, I think it's really just that cornerstone of, the golf season's here as soon as that Pebble Beach Pro-Am's done. But it was cool to see just ball flights in general. I think this is the type of event where I really like to watch the ball traces in general. Like if you watch Scotty Scheffler's shot into the last hole yesterday, you can because it's so dark and with all those clouds, you could actually see his ball flight, which was really cool compared to where the tracer was, and it just epitomizes how important it is to control your ball flight, especially when you got I think someone mentioned on the broadcast just a large body of water to your left. Right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean it's just the ocean.
So that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, but it's the emphasis on controlling your golf ball probably a little bit more at Pebble because you have smaller greens, you have maybe more dog legs off the tee. And, of course, the wind and the weather as well. So there was a lot of different variables that maybe were in play this week that weren't necessarily in play at the Phoenix Open that players had to navigate. And, yeah, you mentioned Scotty. To see him, that's 2 weeks in a row now. He's had a horrible, for his standards, first round.
Yeah.
Essentially playing himself out of the tournament. And then all of a sudden you look on Sunday, halfway through the final round, and he's at the top of the leaderboard, making a charge. So I don't know if it's just for fun. If he's just like, let me just give these guys a good head start, and then I can make my charge and see if I can still win.
That's what we call doing a McElroy.
Right? Yeah. That's kind of picking up on that end of things. So that was fun to see. Morikawa gets the win. We'll go a little bit deeper into his clubs here shortly, but we also want to cover Anthony Kim briefly as well. That, like you mentioned, out of nowhere, entered the final round 5 back, which is already a huge step forward for him. Kind of the way he's, obviously he earned his spot this year on Live through the Q School or the qualifying spot. And then he plays this event. He's doing really well, but he's still 5 back going into the final round to Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, 2 of the biggest names in the game right now. And then he destroys them in the final round. Just give me your quick impressions on that.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think, he had 0 points for his first 2 seasons on Live. I think he understands, that is, he's not played, he played 1 under par round in 2 years. for him to go and win Q School, which in its not him win Q's. I think
he got like second or third. I got like the last spot.
That alone, I think, probably just gave him so much confidence walking into this year. He's like, you know what, I think I can actually like do it again. You know, and it's a testament to how hard you have to work to get your game in a place as great as it is now. I mean, if you look at that leaderboard at the end of the day yesterday, he beat Rahm, he beat Bryson. But you look at the rest of the names, you've got like Till Hatton was just behind him, and a few other guys as well. So it wasn't like a dud field. It was he beat some proper players. That's like
he beat the guys, and they brought their game.
Yeah, by a long way too.
Yeah, I mean, crazy. He made putt after putt, gave fist pump after fist pump. So that was a lot of fun. So I will say too, I know we got some questions in the chat here already from. I know Gerald sent one. We will have a Q&A session here towards the end. So drop your questions if you're watching on YouTube right now, and we'll get to those later on and kind of do a live Q&A session here. Here is, we'll dive in now to what's in the bag. This is, we'll start with Collin Morikawa at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And I think what we'll do here is we'll talk Collin, what's in the bag. And then we'll get into a couple of the unique clubs that were in play this week as well for maybe other players. But Collin with a TaylorMade bag. So he's got the TaylorMade QI4D LS driver. He's got the TaylorMade QI4D Tour fairway woods, 3 and 5 wood. What have you seen from QI4D so far, Harrison? In particular, in fittings that you've seen, and also this Tour fairway wood, which is kind of the first time we've seen this. Most guys on Tour seem to be playing kind of that core model.
Yeah, I think. I mean, straight away this year already, it's been really quick. You know, everyone wants to try it. It's the new TaylorMade product. Everyone wants to always try a TaylorMade product, but it's really quick. So I think I'm not surprised to see a lot of the Tour players kind of switching it straight in. Collin playing the Tour model, that's a little bit surprising because, yeah, like you said, a lot of people are playing that core model head. But for someone like him, there's so much adjustability on that head. So you've got the three weight settings on there. I mean, he has his knocked down as well, so it has less loft, and he's got some weights moved around. So he's probably set this thing up to be a low launching, low spinning monster to kind of navigate his way around Pebble this week. But I think just in general, so far, I've really enjoyed using those Tour fairway woods just because, well, it's kind of a fitter's dream. You can do whatever you want to it. You got someone who's whack it out of the toe. Oh, well, let's put a little bit more toe weight in there. See if we can retain a bit more ball speed. You know, it's not spinning enough. Oh, let's chuck it at the back. You know, so it's been interesting to see those. I think, like I said, I think if you can just have the more adjustability you have, the more options we have to be able to fit it perfectly to your game instead of just settling for 90% there.
Yeah, I think, and also we got to talk about the combo set he has his irons in too. So there's the adjustability with the QI40 Tour fairway woods. There's also adjustability with that LS driver as well he's playing. And then he gets into an iron set that has, I would say, 3 very distinct different sizes and profiles to them. So his 4-iron is that TaylorMade PDHY, which is kind of like a thicker driving iron. So it's, essentially a player's distance iron, but it's one of those utilities that's actually, to me, a lot bigger than most. But then he goes into a 5 and 6 iron of the TaylorMade P7 CB, and then down into the P730, which are essentially a muscle back blade. So I know you've worked and you've fit combo sets to players, of course, throughout the last few years as those have picked up popularity. But have you seen a combo set like this where you kind of go from something really large and I don't want to say chunky, but kind of large in profile and size, all the way down to a muscle back blade like this?
Yeah, I mean, this is the what we call the new Scotty Scheffler. Huh? You know, this is that's exactly what he does. He puts that chunkier Strixon 4-iron driving iron in there. I would be very surprised to see if Collin keeps that driving iron in this week, if he is playing at Riv. I think that is a switch. When you go play golf courses that are pretty windy and there's a lot of emphasis on keeping that ball flight in check, moving to a driving iron style like that is great because it's way lower in spin and way lower in launch than what you would have than a typical P7 CB. That CB is going to spin a little bit more. Yeah, you're going to have a little more control, but I think the driving iron makes a lot of sense. You see it a lot during British Open time. You see it a lot during Irish Open time. Anywhere you're going to go where the conditions are actually going to be, where you're playing the conditions more than you're actually playing the golf course, it makes sense to put some different options in the top of the bag so we can really navigate around the course.
And one thing I wanted to ask about too was, how often have you seen a utility iron, which is clearly what DHY is. How often have you seen that built with a Dynamic Gold Tour Issue X100?
Yeah,
because I thought that was a little interesting that he kept the same shaft throughout his entire iron set with the 3 different club heads, but you don't see that for utility with an X100 Tour Issue like this very often.
Yeah, and that is something that he's probably trying to meet himself in the middle. And what I mean by that, you chuck the graphite shaft in there that you'd usually play in some sort of driving iron. Yeah, that thing's going to be pretty low in spin if he's playing a similar shaft to what he had in his woods, which is kind of typical. So putting that X100 in is probably going to give him a touch more spin. So he probably, instead of going all the way one way, he's probably just met himself right in the middle.
Sure, yeah. So that kind of where maybe I'm thinking so much visually about the different club heads, but the feel and the performance with maintaining that shaft all the way through can blend things together for him relatively nicely there. So,
you're right.
So rounding out his what's in the bag, those are these irons, and then he's got some wedges here, TaylorMade MG5. He's got a 50 degree, the SB grind, then 56 with the LB, and then the Tiger Woods 60 degree grind there. And the Dynamic Gold Tour Issue S400 as well. We've talked about this before, going a little softer with the wedge shafts there. I guess, what have you seen when you do wedge fittings on whether it's that shaft piece or just the MG5s?
Well, MG5, I think when I tested this on the channel, I tested the MG5, and that thing had so much spin on it.
Yeah.
I remember I hit it on the screen.
That's right.
And he flew back and hit me. It was crazy. But yeah, I think MG5 in itself is a great new wedge. When you go play places like Pebble Beach, rough is going to be really thick. The sand is going to be really soft, so you're going to want to play something that is slightly higher in bounce. I mean, he's kind of got medium bounce kind of across the board here. The TW grind has a little bit more heel and toe relief to be able to do a few more things with it, but for the most part, he's got a pretty stock build across the whole way throughout.
Yeah.
Because when we have a softer sand, you actually want to have a little bit more bounce so the club doesn't dig as much. Same thing with thick rough. If you have less bounce, that club is going to dig. It won't give you quite as much forgiveness. That's why we opt anyone who comes in and says, "Hey Harrison, I'm really struggling. I play this golf course with really soft sand, but I've got like a 6 or an 8 degree bounce wedge and it's like a T grind or something." Well, no wonder. If the thing just keeps digging, you need something that has a bit more sole width. You want maybe look at like if it's still a low bounce model, you can get like a low bounce K grind from the Vokey line. Then that's where those kind of things really start to come into their own. Yeah, and it's I mean, actually you see it as well from a lot of guys that have Vokey wedges, where almost all these guys on tour kind of have a grind that's especially made for how they use the wedge, or maybe it's just that week how they're going to use their wedges. But good to see, clearly Collin's a really good wedge player, and that showed out this week. And then the putter for him is also, it's been if you've been following Collin Morikawa the last, I would say, a year or so, he's been changing things in and out. There was the caddy thing last year where he was having it seemed like a different caddy every week there for about a month, and then the kind of at the same time the putters were going in and out of the bag. But found something this week that clicked with him, or at least gave him enough of an advantage over the field. TaylorMade Spider Tour X, another putter model that keeps winning. It seems like every week there's somebody gaming one of these, whether they're on staff or not. With Goddard up as the example last week. Really good stuff here as well from the TaylorMade Spider Tour X. Yeah, that Spider is just, I mean, it's hard not to beat it pretty much every single week. I mean, it's cool that he has a different alignment piece on there. He has almost the kind of like that. It's almost like a sideways tee. He's actually used that alignment piece before on a couple of different putters, I've noticed. He had I'm blanking what the model name is now, where it was like it was kind of like a mini mallet blade kind of looking thing. I can't remember exactly what the name was, but had that same thing. So he must feel pretty comfortable with having that alignment piece. But yeah, he changes putters more than Kevin Kraft, and that is saying something. That is saying something. Yeah, so he's giving Kevin a run for his money. So, but it's cool to see him. Come across this week. He putted great this week. So yeah. Speaking of Kevin, he's coming up here shortly on the show. We're going to talk Cobra Optum. We actually sat down with Kevin in here, and right after he tested some of the Optum lineup for the first time, gave his impressions. So stay tuned for that. But before we do that, we are going to dive into Anthony Kim's What's in the Bag briefly here. We talked about his win and how impressive and kind of surprising in a sense as well that was. But we also talked kind of before going live here this morning, Harrison, that he's got kind of a fun What's in the Bag setup, because he's got all these different brands
and he starts his woods off. He's got each of the last 3 Callaway Triple Diamond lineups or series in his bag. So the Callaway Quantum Triple Diamond driver down to 10 degrees. He's got the Callaway Paradigm AI Smoke Triple Diamond 3-wood, and then the Elite Triple Diamond 5-wood. So I do wonder how someone gets like each of the last 3 series of Callaway woods, for example, in his bag, but clearly it worked for him this week.
Yeah, and I actually think it's really interesting the 3 different models Triple Diamond. He just moved the Quantum into the bag this week. He was playing the GT3 before that. I think it was the same shaft, but he went for the Quantum this week. And it's obviously worked fantastic. But it's kind of funny because he's got it just kind of shows that just because you had the Triple Diamond last year's model doesn't mean you should just order next year's Triple Diamond model because it's going to be the same, because clearly there's a difference. If a golfer like Anthony Kim, who is relentlessly pursuing, we'll call it greatness now, he's covering every stone to make sure that he is set up correct. Well, he has used every single model. And I think it's funny because that Paradigm, I don't think he was playing golf again when that Paradigm was out. So this is like a second swing's dream. Look at this golfer. He's got every single club going back the last 3 or 4 years. He came in for an end flight somewhere. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because he's got his iron set's also a fun little combo of 2 different brands. So he's got a T250 with the 4-iron. And then he goes into what has been a very successful iron set the last few years, the TaylorMade P7 TW. Of course, Scotty Scheffler has a set in his bag. Tommy Fleetwood, I think, also has a set in his bag, among others. Kind of that blade that was sort of inspired by the preferences of Tiger when he made the move to TaylorMade many years ago now. S400 shafts, interesting in the iron, so a little softer for him.
Not too surprised by that. I mean, he has, swing speed is a lot of picking the right flexor shaft, but that S400 kind of fits right between a stiff shaft and an extra stiff shaft. But it all really comes down to that transition type. If you have a pretty smooth transition, like Anthony Kim does, he's a pretty smooth swinger, especially with his irons. I'm not surprised that works a lot better for him than something that's a little bit more stout. He's going to be able to feel where that club face is more, and he can have a bit more of a natural release. So
one question I had for you just on the combo set piece. We had a combo set win at Pebble. Now we've got a combo set here with Anthony Kim. But how often, if ever, have you fit a player with a combo iron set like Anthony Kim's that has 2 different models or two different brands in it?
It's a tough sell.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably different because it's so much of it is based on like the looks that a player wants, and a lot of times if you switch the brands, that look gets really different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever actually, unless I've put a driving iron into someone's hands, kind of like what Morikawa has done, I don't think I've ever really changed brand there.
Yeah,
I'm starting to think maybe I should. I'm starting to see a lot more on tour, but I think it's more so of a. It's more of a feel thing. People like the feel of a TaylorMade, or they like the feel of a Strixon. You don't want to switch. But I think it's just interesting. He must be testing literally everything to make sure he's got what works best for him. So, but yeah, I'm going to try. That's my goal this year. I'm going to fit someone for a different 4-iron.
And lastly here, he's got a kind of a tour type, timeless GSS Tour prototype, Scotty Cameron, blade, Newport style putter. I think as we've seen over and over these mallets win on tour. It seems like there's the blade fad is almost fading away, and so to see a classic blade style shape putter win is kind of cool for those traditionalists out there. But I also want to talk about his wedge set. So he's got a Vokey SM11, one of the few kind of newer models or products in his bag, but he's got a fun setup here. So according to we're looking at the Golf WRX page here. He's got the 44 degree F grind. So the 44 is new for this year with SM11, but he's got that bent to 45. 50 degree wedge that he's got bent to 49. That's also an F grind. A 54 degree that's bent to 55, and then a 58 degree with that low bounce T grind to 59. So obviously very specific with his loss. How often are you, when you're working with golfers, really kind of making slight adjustments to loft or bounce to make sure the gapping is exactly where it needs to be, the way Anthony Kim has done with his bag?
Yeah, I mean, that's everything. I mean, being able to gap it the right way makes the most sense. I mean, rule of thumb, every degree is going to be 2 or 3 yards depending on a couple of things. So, to him to blend that, because that TW set is inherently a little bit weaker unless he plays them strong about it. I haven't seen any data to say otherwise. That probably makes more sense for him to gap it the way he is. But it's weird he's kind of mushed everything back, because as you start to weaken the loft, you're actually adding a little more bounce to each wedge. So he's got a lot of bounce on his 50, which is not too surprising. You want to kind of match that to what your iron set is. You want to be, it's more of a full swing club, that's why he's in the F grind. But that 54 12D, that thing is designed to just hit squared face chip shots.
Yeah.
So a lot of bounce, designed to hit square face chip shots. But then he goes completely opposite with a 58 degree, which has no bounce.
Yeah.
Relatively no bounce, and it's a really versatile grind. So really just he's giving himself every opportunity and every chance to have a club for every situation.
That's why we recommend golfers have multiple different lofts, but also the grinds and kind of bounces in the bag. So quickly, before we get to our discussion with Kevin on Optum, there's a couple clubs that were in play this week that we should just quickly go over. I think one of them is Rory McIlroy switching back to his Roars Proto irons. He was playing P7CB for an event on the DP World Tour, which was kind of crazy because we were like, he has his own prototype blade irons built for him. Going to P7CB is a little weird, and he makes the switch back to the blades. A couple players testing different putters. There's a unique story. We've got these up, by the way, on the secondswing.com blog, some kind of stories on these players making changes. This one here, we got Chris Goddard up, Ricky Fowler, and Keegan Bradley all playing new putters this week. But the couple that were, at least for us at Second Swing, very cool was these older fairway woods in play. So first one we got was Taylor Pendrith. Golf Dibber X got some photos of his bag. And what we saw in there was a Ping G425 7-wood.
Yeah.
From your perspective, G425 fairway woods, I played a G425 for a long time. What do you think about G425? And then, of course, Pendrith going with a 7-wood here.
I mean, I loved him. I played the driver. I think it was really nice. I think anytime I see anyone with like an older fairway wood, and it's a bit ironic that I'm talking about this. You got to think you got to think it's a comfort level thing, because the G425 was a pretty high launching, high spinning 7-wood, not too dissimilar to kind of what you see now, but I think that 7-wood, if I remember correctly, is a little bit bigger than some of the new G440 line. The new G440 line is a little bit more compact than when the 7-woods weren't really a big craze a couple of years ago. So they were a little bit bigger because they were designed for iron replacement with a more moderate golfer. So interesting.
Yeah, and I think they were the first to have that spin consistency technology, which is where they kind of almost they sort of changed the loft of the club bottom on the bottom of the club face, so that it kind of helps with those maybe low face strikes that people struggle with there. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Brian Harman. So Brian Harman, if you're familiar with Brian Harman, he's kind of that grinder. He doesn't hit the ball the farthest. He's not the biggest guy on tour, but he can win big tournaments like the Open because he hits the ball straight very often. He keeps control of his golf ball, and he also doesn't change equipment very often. So his bag is full of stuff that's older. He's got a TSI2 driver, but also his fairway woods are the Titleist TS2, which is now, we're approaching a decade old. So he's got a 13.5 degree head and a 16.5 degree head, which is an interesting one because they're both technically, I guess, for most manufacturers would call them 3-woods. Yeah. But what do you think about that setup? That's kind of interesting to see from him.
Yeah, I remember watching him at the British Open when he won a couple of years ago, and he has a great ball fly. It's the first time I've seen him hit balls, and he does just come out really flat. So they were pretty low in spin, especially that 13.5 degree. That thing was like a rocket. So I'm not, but yeah, so it's kind of cool to see him still playing that. I think really just, I think both of those just really emphasizes, just because it's brand new doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. Come in and try some of these used options. TS2 was a great fairway wood line. So if you're wanting to kind of find something that works for your game, maybe come in and try some used options with us.
Right. I wonder what kind of launch and spin he gets out of those, because to see someone have a second, wood at stated loft of 16.5, that's 3 clubs they have from here that Brian has from 16.5 down in his bag. So curious on that and how that gaps for him, but nonetheless, cool to see a player like him using something a little bit older. So golfers, we've got we're seeing your questions and comments in the YouTube chat. Again, we're going to have a session here at the end of the show for live Q&A. If you got some questions, drop them in there right now. We'll answer them toward the end. But now we're going to get to our interview with Kevin Kraft. Kevin, so again, this was recorded shortly after he tested Cobra Optum for the first time. So we brought him in the studio. We got to get his impressions on it and what he thinks about that lineup. It's going to be, I think he's really excited about Optum. I think he's already knowing what types of stuff he's going to play there. So this is about a 15-minute segment here talking with Kevin on Cobra Optum. We hope you enjoy this one. We now welcome on the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. It is Kevin Kraft in studio here in the Twin Cities, in for a couple days to film some content on these new launches, and so we also wanted to do a kind of a debrief discussion.
Sure.
We did a lot of stuff on Cobra Optum, so we'll start there with Cobra Optum. I think with Cobra Optum, it's expanding on this idea of adjustability.
Yeah.
But I think they also didn't sacrifice any performance. I know I'm excited for people who haven't seen it yet to go check out the driver's swing report, because you were chasing some pretty good speed with those.
I mean, Cobra's been kind of subtly really doing a great job on innovation. I think the golf world's starting to finally get a sense of that too, right? There's more chatter about, hey, these guys are doing some pretty cool stuff. So Optum's the next step forward in that. And from what we saw yesterday, I mean, as a 10-year staffer with Cobra, I'm pretty darn excited about it, to be honest.
Yeah, so. It was you were chasing some big time speed. You were carrying, you had a couple carry 290, I think it was, with the driver.
Yeah.
And there's a big tech innovation within here that we should talk about.
Yes,
so
for sure.
There's been this chase for MOI with drivers.
Yes.
Specifically drivers, but also, with every, wood out there, right?
But putters even. Right?
Correct. Yeah, that's true too. So what these companies have emphasized is the twisting that takes place on the club head, horizontally and vertically.
Correct.
When there's a miss hit, right? And you feel it in your hands, the club twists.
Yes.
And they've been paying attention to how the axis and the twisting on the vertical and horizontal. But Cobra took it a step further and is now addressing the diagonal twisting that takes place.
Yeah.
And so what they have kind of coined is POI, points of inertia. And they are claiming that, at least in the drivers, it can be up to 23% tighter dispersion downrange, which is you kind of alluded to it many times in the video, but it's a massive number.
It's a huge number. We're not talking like tiny incremental gains, which is what we typically see in the golf industry. Very rarely do we see somebody go, our next product's going to be like 25% better in any category. And here we are talking about the one thing that most people need more than anything else, which is downrange accuracy. 23% is a huge number, but we saw some pretty accurate shots yesterday. Honestly, I was flailing at it a bit, right? I hadn't even hit any balls for about 5 weeks because of this tennis elbow thing I had going on. Thank goodness for cortisone, but it feels pretty good this morning overall. So, I mean, I was going at it, and I hadn't gone at it for quite a while. So I probably was not in what I would consider my best vein of form, but I did not hit very many balls that were, too wayward.
Yeah, no, there was a couple that you even reacted as you swung like, oh, that's going to go away right. And then it actually would turn back, or vice versa. There was a couple heel shots that you kind of anticipated with your kind of in-out path that the thing was going to kind of duck to the left, and it stayed and maintained a nice kind of a high draw. Yep. I think there's a lot to be excited about if you are a Cobra driver fan, because, and I mentioned this too, maybe there wasn't all the models, but I think you could tell in how the sole was kind of shaped and maybe some of the graphics on the bottom and where the weight was positioned. You can kind of see that it's a little bit of it's placed almost diagonally on the sole, that sort of shape. And I think it addresses the diagonal twisting there.
Sure.
Is maybe part of that. So, and it's not, again, you obviously had a dress, you can't see any of that. It's just, it seemed like there was a little bit of a different take on the sole shape and design than prior generations.
Yeah.
And I really think, based on what I saw yesterday, that's going to help a lot. In all four models.
Yeah. And if you're not, just a Cobra guy, just hit it. Just try it, right? It's not, make a few swings with it. You'll either know that you like the feel or you don't like the feel. But, when somebody makes such a big claim, put it to the test.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the only thing that is gonna make this pay off for the consumer is if you actually go out and hit it, and if it works, then hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we should note too, you have not been an LS or a low spin player with driver.
I never have.
And it seemed like that was the one yesterday that you were hitting the best. And so there's maybe something there to the low spin because you're still getting low spin out of it.
Right.
But I think there was maybe a little higher launch in that thing than in the past.
Yeah, so the problem I've had in the past is I've had a really hard time with really legitimately anybody's LS driver. I've had a hard time getting it squared up. And so I just pound down the right-hand side, and it drives me crazy. So I was not going into our testing yesterday expecting to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to play the LS this year. But goodness gracious, I'm playing the LS this year. It was I had no problem turning it over, and the look, feel, everything was great. Numbers were – I'm a little extreme in what I want to see from a spin rate. I wouldn't fit most people for what I'm chasing.
Yeah.
So, but it gave me those numbers, and yeah, we get the right shaft in there, and let's go.
Yeah, I think the fairway woods too were very fast, and he was kind of it seemed like the same principle was applying. I know they maybe not to the extent of the drivers, but I know they had a similar emphasis in the construction with the POI piece.
Yeah.
Saw some really good forgiveness with those in all three models. I do have to ask you and get the thoughts for the listeners about the glossy crown on the Cobra driver. It's been a while since they've had the glossy look.
Yeah, LTDX was the last time we had glossy, but we also had blue at the time. So I don't know why that makes any difference, but I guess in my crazed mind it does. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of glossy tops because I have to wipe off the fingerprints all the time, and it's such a petty little thing, but it's definitely part of my makeup, and it's a great looking driver.
Yeah,
it is. Really is. They went away from the Infinity crown last year for the DS Adapt. It was a little wider, that line in front before the carbon starts, and this year it's thinner and it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's really dark. Like, they have murdered out, that sort of seems to be their aesthetic now, is just all black, little tiny flashes of color on the bottom just so you can kind of tell which model you're in.
Right.
You know, the Max D has a little red and the X has some blue. But it's all deal, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Titleist is glossy. Callaway's glossy.
Yeah.
I don't think Ping's going to be glossy.
Probably not.
I don't think. Haven't seen it yet, but don't think it's going to be glossy.
Yeah, I mean, it's merely a picky aesthetic.
Yeah,
thing,
it is.
And I'm the same way. I need a matte crown that doesn't have the shiny.
Should come with like, you buy a driver, or it should come with like a, you get glasses and they give you a little
the cloth thing.
Little cloth, to clean it off. They should do that little Cobra logoed cloth so you can
take some notes.
Keep your driver clean.
Maybe Cobra, that's the next step in kind of their presentation of
they should really reach out to me for ideas like this,
Yeah, exactly. Kevin's got all kinds of great ideas.
It's not going to cost them a whole lot to do a little cleaning cloth with your driver.
Lastly, we got to touch on the King Max and King Max iron, the Max irons, right? So what was most notable for me with the Cobra King irons was the spin. So these are Game Improvement E irons.
Yes.
And in the past, Cobra irons in this category have been very low spin.
Yeah.
We could maybe go back and look what like DS Adapt was like versus Optum in the irons, but it felt like it was a 800 or 900 RPM increase for you.
Yeah. The first shot I hit with it, I was like, is that real? Like, I was not expecting. I think first swing was like 5,600 RPM. I was like, really? Is that actually going to hold up? I was like all excited, but I was like, it was only one swing. And putting both those irons through it, they spun. Like, really good ball speeds, but with spin.
Yeah.
And that is such a key thing when across the industry, everybody's gone stronger because everybody asks for more distance, and the manufacturers are like, okay, you're gonna have more distance. But there's a point you get to where the diminishing return is in control, and if you're not hitting it high enough, if you're not getting enough spin, you're not going to get a good landing angle, and therefore that distance that you're getting isn't good for you. Yeah. It's actually hurting your ability to shoot good numbers, because that ball's going to land. It's going to go over the back of the green.
Yep.
Right? Long is usually bad in golf. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I'm terrified of going long, which is one of the reasons why I'm changing up the way I'm doing everything in my bag. So to see the spin rates like that is really, really exciting, because having ball speed plus spin, that's going to give people what they want and what they need.
Yeah.
Right. I want to give everybody in a fitting exactly what they want, but I also have to do it in a way that it's also what they need, because I'm not gonna put something in their hands that's not gonna be useful.
Yeah. And so right? I think in general, I think you would probably agree that the Cobra game improvement irons, the King models this year, are going to just be way more viable in fittings.
Yes.
They're going to be stronger candidates for a lot more players because of this extra spin. And
absolutely.
I think, for such a long time, even since I've been at Second Swing in the last 7 years, there was probably several years there where chasing low spin and chasing distance was the thing. And it stretched down to irons, lower spin for more distance.
Yeah.
Was the name of the game. But I think, to your point, that diminishing return now is there, where the distance is hurting people with how fast and how low spin these irons have become. And Cobra's taken note of that, and they've really added some spin to this category.
Yeah.
I mean, the irons are 27 and a half and 29 and a half, or something along those lines, or 27 and 29.
Yeah, I think it's 27 and a half and 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
And both were,
they both spun really, really well.
Actually, the difference in spin between the two wasn't that great for being, I think
it was
we
a
were
couple
both,
200 to 300 RPM.
Yep. And you were well into the 5,000s on both.
Yes.
For your 7-iron, and you play a much weaker one in your gamer. And so it was encouraging to see that. And again, much more playable for a wider range of golfers. So, I think Cobra, with this initial, with their launches here in January in terms of woods down to irons, awesome. I mean, I think it's going to be a really good year for Cobra. They've made some significant things that you can refer to in their technology, right? A lot of times it's kind of there's the marketing terms that you see.
Yes.
It's going to be longer, it's going to be straighter, things like that. But you have a true message that reflects the innovation that they've done with the POI and addressing the diagonal twisting of the club heads. And then, of course, with the irons, we saw the measurement of the spin increase quite a bit. So a lot to look forward to from Cobra in 2026.
It is funny, too, because you look at all the technology that comes out, and we see what all that is and what the terms are and everything, and nobody ever asks about that stuff.
Yeah,
they're like, "What does it do?"
There's probably
high?
a few and far between. There are gear junkies that want to know that stuff, but a lot of times it's just like, what is the performance?
But with this one, it's actually a story that you want to tell.
Yeah.
Whereas, okay, so you've got this technology or that technology, and it's designed to make the ball go faster.
But nowadays with drivers, it's like, well, this will help the miss hits on your drives, right?
Right.
Well, now you have something that you can actually refer to that is. It provides support or evidence to
100%
to that theory, that story. So,
it's going to be a good story.
It's going to be an awesome year for Cobra, Optum, drivers, fairways, hybrids.
Hybrid was great too.
Yeah. I guess we didn't talk much about the hybrid, but the hybrid was really good as well.
Yeah, it's great shape, feels really good, lots of adjustability.
Yes.
Future Fit 33 is a wonderful thing, even for those who look at it and go, well, that's overkill. But
I mean,
it is, but it's not. You give somebody like me, 33 options, and I'm pretty happy about it. Your job's just to leave it once we get it there.
Yeah, exactly. So, Cobra, big year for them. We talked irons and we talked all the Optum metals. Schedule a fitting now that you can do that.
Yep.
So schedule a fitting. Kevin or any one of our master fitters will dial you in for Cobra this year in 2026. Thank you for sticking around, giving us your insight.
Love it. It's great.
And that was Kevin Kraft talking Cobra OPTM. And of course, if you've been following the channel, been following Kevin, you know he gets pretty excited when Cobra's got some new equipment out. I think he's pretty excited about this. I think there's a couple comments in there about having, the glossy crown, and Cobra's kind of gone away from maybe the matte finish the last couple years with Dark Speed and DS Adapt. That maybe he'll have to get used to a little bit. But give me your thoughts, Harrison, on what you've seen from OPTM so far in fittings, and what golfers should be excited about there.
Yeah, I think it's a nice lineup. I think I like that they've added a lot of adjustability in it. They've been pretty good at that the last few years. Mm-hmm. I think I do agree with Kevin. I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of the glossiness. I think I don't like looking at myself too much, so I just keep looking at I'm not sure I'm a fan. Anyway, but apart from that, they've been really good. They've been quite quick off the face, and you have so much adjustability in there. I think you have a lot of opportunity to get a lot of people into that lineup.
And that the story. We'll get into this as well. We had a comment or a question that was submitted over the weekend on Instagram about this. We're going to address, but the story of MOI and POI is really cool as well for them. But before we get into a Q&A, we're going to do one more segment here. This was captured at the PGA Show this year. We talked to Corey Gerrard. He's kind of the product director for Vokey Wedges. And so we went through SM11 and kind of what's new with the new, of course, when Vokey has new wedges, it's always exciting. So Corey gives us the rundown here. It's about a 6.5-minute segment, so we'll go through that. I'm excited for you guys to hear what Corey has to say. Hey there, golfers. I'm Drew Mahol, the Second Swing Golfer at the PGA Show in Orlando 2026. I'm here with Corey Gerrard. We got new Vokey wedges, and it's always an exciting time in golf when there's a new Vokey wedge lineup. SM11, Corey.
Yes,
very
Drew.
Exciting stuff. Let's break it down. Let's dive right in. What's new here? What should golfers know if they want to improve their short game in 2026?
There's a lot of really good stuff, Drew. Thank you. Number one, you got to look at it. You take a good, close look at that. It's a really clean design.
Yep.
That's what golfers are looking for, right? But then I think that the interesting thing with the wedge is golfers don't want it to look too different. I love what I'm playing. Don't change too much. And that's where a lot of the great stuff is done under the hood. So SM11, you're looking at three things: contact, flight, and spin.
Okay. Yeah, I think when you talk about wedge shots, those are the three things you look for, right? And the three most important things. So
yes.
I guess what's under the hood here, or maybe on top of the hood, that is improving that contact and delivering the right flight and spin.
Spot on. They're the three keys to great wedge play. So contact, it comes down to finding the right grind. And I know, Drew, that gets a little complicated for golfers, but honestly, what we've done with this line is you just come and see someone at Second Swing to help you find the right one. You're going to be in great shape. We have more loft, bounce, and grind combinations than ever before. We've added a 44-degree wedge. As iron lofts get a little bit stronger, there's that player who maybe wants a little more control out of the rough. They've got an option there in a 44-degree pitching wedge. Then at the other end of the set, Drew, we've got a couple of additions. The K grind is coming in a low bounce K. It's really popular on tour, so a 6-degree version of that. And then we always had the K grind in this 14-degree. Soften that back a little bit to a 12.
Yeah.
Just for that player who thinks 14 is a little too much bounce for them, you still get the benefit of that wide sole you're looking at, but you've got 12 degrees of bounce.
Yeah. And speaking on the bounce and the grinds, that stuff works as long as you understand in terms of the center of gravity and the ball flight you're looking for.
Correct.
So, I know that's a big piece of what the Vokey wedges how they've evolved over the last several generations. Let's talk about center of gravity and how that then results in a particular ball flight that you guys are trying to deliver for golfers.
So spot on. So that ball flight's going to come from that contact. Once you get contact grooves 2 through 5, that's exactly what you're looking for. You're going to unlock that ball flight. And what we were seeing, Drew, with SM10 was there was something going on with this tee grind. It was really popular on tour and in the real world, not just from a look standpoint, the way it sat with low bounce, but the way it flew and felt off the club face. And that's because the CG was in the perfect spot.
Yeah.
So we went back to the R&D team and said, how can we make that for every single grind within a loft? So if you take all of the 60s, every single grind now, whether it's a D, an M, an S, they're all at the same spot as that center of gravity on a T grind.
Okay.
So if you were to hit them all, Drew, off of a T, all 5 grinds, they'd all launch in the same spot. But you don't do that.
No, of
you hit them
course
off the ground.
Yeah.
So robot testing off a tee, you want to come back to finding the right grind off the ground. Once you do that, we've locked in that center of gravity almost like autopilot. So you're going to get the right ball flight regardless of which grind. So you just got to find the one that suits you.
Yeah. So then let's talk spin now too.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to wedges, a lot of golfers, that's the number one thing they think of is like, how can I want my spin? I want my control on the green. So I imagine the grooves and how those are designed is a big part of controlling and generating enough spin for golfers as well.
And you said it, control. So it's getting the right amount of spin where you need it most. So we have 3 grooves now, low, mid, and high lofts. You don't want maximum spin in your pitching wedge. You want just the right amount. So we have that low, mid, and high. Every single groove on every single wedge is now 5% deeper in volume. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That channels more grass, sand, debris into that groove so the ball can hit the edge. And then you won't see it here, maybe with your naked eye, Drew, but there are 4 little lines. There's a face texture between each groove that's now angled towards the ball, a little bit like a shaving razor. That's not going to give you spin on its own, but what it does is keeps the ball on the club face longer, which means it engages with the groove a little more. So maybe pitching wedge, gap wedge, those full swings, you might not feel that as much. Green side on the sand and lob wedge, that's where you're going to get more spin thanks to that.
Yeah, and I think you especially notice it when you get brand new, fresh grooves.
Yes.
Almost cutting up the golf ball sometimes a little bit if you're getting
grooves
generating
help.
that spin for the fresh grooves, especially these Vokey grooves. It's no joke. On the fitting side of things, I wanted to just tee you up for one more thing, and that is the importance of getting fit, not just for one grind, but all of your wedges in your set. You're most likely going to be using them differently. So can you just talk on the importance of having multiple different grinds within your set of wedges? You
have to have the right tools in the toolbox. So it's nice to have, one screwdriver, but you want the other head, the Phillips head, to help.
Right.
And that's the same thing when it comes to grinds. You're right, Drew. It might not be, hey, I'm an F grind throughout. It's what do I need in what shot? So we see generally players taking a little more bounce and a wider sole and grind in their sand wedge, a little less bounce, a little sharper sole in their greenside club, like a lob wedge. So getting fit is super important for that. The beauty of it too is you can get fit indoors.
Yeah.
It's really cold outside here in January.
Yes.
In a lot of parts of the country. It doesn't mean you can't get fit for wedges. Come in and see the team. We've got the wedge fitting app, we've got all the tools, and the experts will help you find the right grind for you.
Yeah, and the Vokey wedge lineups have led the industry in terms of options. So make sure you have the right one dialed in for your game. Well, right ones for the whole set as well. So Corey, thank you so much for the time here.
Thank you, Drew.
Vokey SM11, we're really, really excited about it, that second swing this year. It's going to be a great year. Thank you again.
Great stuff. Thank you.
And that was Corey Gerrard at the PGA Show. It's always a fun time for us to be at the PGA Show and hear from the folks that are kind of behind the scenes working on putting these products together and giving their insights. But there's clearly a good story here with SM11, and that's optimizing launch, optimizing spin, and the way the center of gravity is the same on all the grinds. Same for loft, but all the grinds I think is a big time difference that I think people are going to see in fittings this year. And obviously Anthony Kim, as we talked about earlier, he saw it and he's got a set of SM11s.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat something make something better than it already is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's kind of the same thing to do every year, but they make minor tweaks like having to move CG around. And I think that's really cool. I think, a lot of most golfers are going to hit a little bit lower on the face, especially with those wedges. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job with that. And like they've always said, they're not trying to change anything drastically with their wedges every launch. It's just refining what they can because they know that their wedges are good and they're always picked up on tour and by tour and amateur golfers. So let's get to some questions and some comments. I know those of you in the YouTube chat, we're going to get to as many of those as we can here. We've also got one that we wanted to get to that was submitted on Instagram over the weekend about Cobra Optum, and being that we just talked to Kevin about Cobra Optum, we wanted to get into this one. And this one kind of dives into a little bit of the tech and the R&D story behind Optum. So this is from kev.esg on Instagram. Really excited about the Cobra Optum line. I'm sold on the POI story. So which of the Cobra Optum fairway woods have the lowest POI? Is there a decrease in dispersion like the drivers, and what would that percentage be? Also, I noticed that the woods don't have the labels like accuracy, forgiveness, and fade like the drivers. Is the weighting system similar? in that the stock setting is the lowest POI. So there's a lot of questions to get at here, Harrison, with the story of Optum, but kind of what can you unpack from that one?
Yeah, so I think, so differences between MOI and POI. MOI is measuring just in one axis. POI is measuring on 3 different dimensions. So MOI is measuring it back and forth. POI is kind of across all faces because realistically, when is the face ever going to be dead square? So the whole idea of MOI is going to be square. POI is going to measure it when the face is even open or closed. So, the POI story is great. I think it gets a little bit confusing. It's the product of inertia to a moment of inertia. So very different stuff. The low spin model in the fairway wood is going to be the lowest in POI. They don't have the labels because, I don't know, but I'm not a designer. But they only have the 3-weight system in the LS model, and they have a 2-weight system in the other 2 models. So I would assume they took the labels away
because of that. Yeah, because you can put weight in different spots and create probably a draw or a fade bias depending on where those weights are with that LS. That's probably a big part of it. And no, there's not. I have not seen. Maybe we can do some. Someone could do some extensive testing on this to figure out if there's a percentage maybe on like a proprietary sort of test. But Cobra did not share with us a certain percentage on that dispersion. Like with the drivers, they had seen up to 23% tighter dispersion from Optum versus DS Adapt. But here's another good one. This was on YouTube right away, right at the beginning of the program from Gerald Sturgis, 6686. We want to get to this one. Because it talks about G400 and how great of a driver that's been over the years. So he said, I unsuccessfully tried to find a replacement for my G400 with a Fuji Vista Pro 55 R2 shaft. Is the G440K a good answer? And with what shaft? Premium is okay. He's had TSI, Dark Speed, QI10, and Elite Triple Diamond. So he's been trying to find something better, and he can't than G400.
Well, G400 was an amazing driver, so I'm not really too surprised. We have so many people coming to fittings with a G400 when as soon as you open that head cover, you go, oh, this is going to be tough.
Right.
So I'm not too surprised you haven't been able to find anything that's too different. What I would start with, I think the K is a really good driver. Me and Drew have done some testing on it recently, and it's fantastic. So it could be the answer for you. It's very forgiving, and it's moderate in spin, so it's not going to spin up too much on you like most high MOI drivers are. Be hard. I would start with that shaft. If you've been that successful with that shaft, try and use that shaft in it first, and then we'll start looking at some other shafts. Hard to tell if I'm not seeing you swing the golf club. I don't have any stats. You would have to change the hosel on there though because it's an old model. So I would start with that as the first place, and then we'll go from there. Yeah,
I will say as someone who is recently been fit in G440K, it's a good driver. So it's I would recommend it. And then G400, by the way, awesome. I've heard that from many fitters that players that come in with G400, it's so tough to find something that's better. But yeah, I would be very curious to see how that would perform head to head.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do one. We'll do a Harrison's comparisons.
There we go. Harrison's comparisons. G440K to G400. This one was earlier on YouTube from Joe Marks. What's up, guys? Any hope for a new JPX iron this year? I have not heard anything. I'm trying to think of if this would be a year where they have in the past. I would say if they do something, it's going to be later in the year because they just released some new Mizuno Pros.
I think the 25s came out early in the year or back end of. So it would have been PGA Show last year.
So I would potentially later in the year, but nothing that we've heard at all. So here's a good question from Jared Harrington Golf. This was also on YouTube. Thoughts on a specialty pitching wedge versus a set pitching wedge? And then he notes he's a 3 handicap. Would you recommend the SM11 44 degree or a Ping S159 or 259 46 degree bent to 45? And he said he's currently gaming S159s.
Okay, that's a good question. I think specialty wedge or set pitching wedge all depends on how you use that wedge. If you are someone who likes to play pitch shots, partial shots, specialty wedge is going to make more sense for you. If it's a more of a full swing club, set pitching wedge all the way. In terms of SM11 versus S259, both great wedges. I would test both of them out. I would probably say that 44 degree might make more sense because those specialty wedge don't go quite as far as a set pitching wedge does because it's a smaller blade. So I would just say it's worth just testing both of them out. But really just have a think about how you actually use your wedges before you go one way or the other.
Yeah, that's that's kind of the what I thought with this question was, I mean, I'm someone that uses pitching wedge only for full swings. Like it's basically a 10 iron for me, and so that's how
and I'm the opposite. I like to play partial shots. I like to play 3/4, half swing, stuff like that. I like to hit 100 yard, 95 yard, 50 degree, 46 degrees. So depending on where I'm playing, sometimes that makes more sense for me.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Another question here. This is from Polo on YouTube. I was asking about your 3-wood situation, Harrison. I know for those that have followed the last several months, know Harrison's got a very unique 3-wood in his bag. Yeah. So tell us about what your 3-wood is right now and if you've found something new yet.
Technically, I found something new. Jake Montgomery had a good trade-in at the Minneapolis story, and he brought it over to me. It's the same head, the RBZ Stage 2, but it's the Tor spoon. So it's actually... So I always played mine at 50, was a 15-degree head, and I knocked the loft down to play 13. 13. So it sat a little bit open. The Tor spoon just comes at 13, so now it sits nice and square. So technically, yes, I did find a new 3-wood.
Yeah. TaylorMade RBZ Stage 2. Yep. You've been playing that, I think for the most part of the last 12 years.
Yeah.
So he technically did find a new fairway wood.
Yeah, right. Everyone can get off my back now. I got a new fairway wood.
Right. It's just the same thing, but lofted.
No, it's new.
More optimal for you.
Really new.
And we got one on Instagram that's related to this from, looks like Lafoon1 on Instagram. RBZ Stage 2 fairway wood versus other goats, and in parentheses put Sim Titanium, M2, M6, or QI4D.
Sim was good. I did actually play that for a few months, but it was no better than the RBZ. So I'm like, well, I was only demoing it for a little bit, so I'm like, well, Actually, I think it was my assistant coaches at the time. I think it just disappeared into my bag for a few months, but it was no better than what I was playing. So I was like, I might as well just give it back. So yeah, it was really good. I probably could play it, but Titanium was the closest one I could find.
Yeah, I feel like those are all, and this person calls them goats. I think that he's not that far off here. So those are some really good fairway woods. But we're starting to wrap up here. So what we're going to do is kind of give you a little bit of what's to come. Because next week, of course, we'll have some talk about TaylorMade QI4D, similar to what you saw today with Kevin. Sitting down talking about QI4D impressions, initial thoughts after hitting them for the first time, and then of course we'll talk all things Genesis, what happened on tour, things like that. As far as the YouTube channel this week, coming up later today, we've got a comparison of Callaway Quantum Max versus Elite X irons. That's going to be a really good one. I know Kevin last year with Elite irons was so pumped about those and how they spun a little bit more. So we compared Quantum to Elite this year. I've also got a mini driver comparison this week as well on the YouTube channel, kind of testing the 4 mini drivers head-to-head against each other now with Cobra King tech in the mix as well. One other thing we got to add as well here is a fun trade bonus this week. So for golfers, if you don't know or aren't aware, you can trade in your club's second swing for value. If you're looking to purchase something, get a nice little, save some money on your purchase. But through this week, through Sunday, 20% additional value on your trade. So that is something to look forward to as well. We're really excited about that, and it's a nice little addition for golfers to save a little bit when they upgrade new clubs, because this is that time of year.
Yeah, already the highest values. Why not add an extra 20%?
I like that. So with that said, I think that's going to be wrapping it up. So subscribe if you're watching right now or you're listening right now. Subscribe on the platform that you're looking at. We are reaching, or I guess getting towards 100,000 subscribers. We've got giveaways coming here soon to, we're going to write the race to 100K. We've got all these items to give away. So if you're not subscribed, you're not going to have any chance to win those.
And then really cool giveaways. Huh?
Really cool giveaways, and a big one when it's time for, it's Augusta time. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe where you're watching or listening, and we will see you next week, Monday, 9 a.m. Central. Thank you guys all for watching and tuning in.
At Second Swing, we know it's not you, it's your clubs. That's why we offer over 100,000 new and used golf clubs and a team of experts who help you find the perfect option for both your swing and your budget. Customize your bag with a tour-level fitting, then trade in your current clubs to save even more on your upgrades. Change your game in store or online at secondswing.com.